All right, mate. That's us. We're on.
Epic.
How are you, Mr. Greenshields? It's been a while since we've spoken, so checking in.
Checking in. Well, as we said before, I'm a bit knackered actually in this moment. My gorgeous spiritual growth partner in life is currently sunning herself in Fiji, having some beautiful personal time. And I've got the trio happening. So my two daughters, 14 and almost 12, and myself. I don't. Someone said, "Are you batching it?" the other day, and I watched the old language and me go, "Oh yeah, I'm batching it." And then I realised I stopped, and that's not me. I don't batch it because in this moment I'm like Kirsty's with me. So and I now know how to do that. So it's been great. There's been a few issues, and we had to iron them out right up front. I had to own a bit of shit too. So it's been we've been 5 days in now, and we're having a great old time. That's personally. So and then just everything else I'm doing is singing at the moment too into 2020, the year of perfect vision. So yeah, I'm great.
Very good. Very good, man. Well, listen, I probably should just spend a moment setting this up because obviously for some men in the Warrior Within circle, they'll know you very well. You've been down, you've spoken to the group quite a lot, and you were kind of part of the inception. I think I kind of spoke to that in the intro to set this kind of chat up, but it was really kind of, I guess, spending time with James and meeting James all those years ago that kind of really, I guess, focused my vision in terms of really wanting to do this men's work and understanding where he was coming from that really kind of, I guess honed my offer a little bit. And so in some ways was the basis of what's become Warrior Within, down the track. So it's humbling, man, to speak to you now, I guess almost 3 years later and this thing's kind of growing. You've been such a big part of it. So firstly, up front, let me just say thank you for everything you've done to get us to where we are now.
Mate, all I've done is held space, and to watch you. The first time, I've told you this many times. I sat next to you in a plenary, and I stand just under 6 foot, and you tower over me, and I looked bigger than you. And now to watch you just step into your rawness is just beautiful, mate. It's been a gift to just watch you in the last few years and become brothers from another mother.
Well, I feel exactly the same, man. And I think maybe, like as I said in the intro, James and I met at a men's conference. We were both, as he said, on a plenary a few years ago. And I remember Mike kind of setting us up to have a little chat just to meet the night before. And we ended up just spending hours chatting away at the bar there. And it was pretty clear even then that we were going to be friends for life. There was no doubt about that. We just connected on so many levels. Even finding out that we went to school together for years apart. So I feel like I really am speaking to one of my closest brothers now. So I appreciate you, man. I appreciate what you just said as well. It means a lot coming from you. When you get a blessing from a king, another king, it lands.
And I acknowledge yours, so I appreciate it.
Well, mate, let's wind it back. Let's wind the clock back a little bit. I feel like asking you a very broad question. It's kind of like, who is James Greenshields? Because there's this big story. You do have a big story, and when you stand up on stage in front of a group of men, you command a pretty big presence because of that story. And we don't really have time to go into all of it now, because I think in and of itself, it needs the space. But if I was to give you just a few minutes to kind of wrap things up, where would you go with that question?
Who is James Greenshields in 2020 is it's a huge question, and the past is becoming less and less relevant to this present moment into the future. For so long, my past dictated who I was, who I believed I was, who I attempted to show up as. And when I judged that past as inadequate, I felt myself inadequate. I was running around trying to be everything for everyone, do the things that people said I was meant to do. So I got a scholarship into the Defence Force Academy, got a degree in alcoholism and Aussie rules because I was more of a lad than I was a an academic. I didn't see point in the academia at that back then. I was just trying to become an officer in the army, and I did. Became successfully into the Royal Australian Armoured Corps, where I served for about 17 years. And, you know, did the things that an army officer does, was honoured with commanding soldiers in a place where you probably, well, let's put it this way, you want to go because Mesopotamia is incredible. Like, to be in the shadow of the ziggurat of Ur, 6,500-year-old temple to the moon god, and actually call it accidentally which means penis in the local Iraqi dialect, so we found out 3 months in. But bit of an insult. Yeah, it's an amazing place, and that was my wake up. You know, being hit by a bomb was the fourth best day of my life because I was so fixated on the script that the past had given me and what society had given me that I didn't realise or know that I need to become my own authority, my own author of my own ship. So yeah, the guy in 2020 is a person who has learnt to become the author of his ship to the degree I have in the moment. And I refer to myself now as a spirit having a human experience instead of a human having a spiritual experience. And that one flip has completely reframed everything I do in helping people, everything I am in just being me.
That's amazing, brother. I mean, I think, we've often talked about this idea that the universe kind of gives you the level that you need to hear it and wake up. And I think, you know, obviously getting hit by a roadside bomb like that, is that a testament to the level of lesson that you required at that time, do you think? Like,
just
we that far away from the path?
Well, it's funny because I was working with a crew yesterday, and a guy got me up to work with this professional athlete group, and he was and one of the other guys was asking me a couple of questions about my background, and I actually forgot the bomb. I just didn't mention that stuff. And my mate turns to me and throws it into the conversation, which is quite funny. That's a great indicator on so many times. People will want to hold on to the past as well. Now, he was doing it for a pure intention, you know, a beautiful intention. He wanted to make sure this guy knew that I had a bit of credibility, which I thought was funny. But he was doing it from a loving space, really. Whereas my mother, on the other hand, she rang me on the 10th anniversary of being hit by the bomb, and when I'd forgotten that it was the 10th anniversary, she got really upset because she's stuck in the past. She can't, if I joke about being hit by a roadside bomb, and I sometimes do that, because to me it's like amusing now. It's like literally quite amusing in the grand concept. And I've done so much healing around it and learned so many lessons because of it. I'm truly honoured to have had that experience. I really, really am honoured because I was so not understanding courage. One of the reasons why I got hit is I had to lead from the front. And I was living my life like that. I was charging into every battle I could possibly find to prove myself, to prove my worth, to prove that I'm enough. And that is killing me inside, like literally killing me inside. And so, you know, I manifested a situation which almost removed me from the planet, but it didn't, you know, and that was the big thing. Kirsty, when I got hit, it was one of the biggest incidents in southern Iraq at the time, and I was the most senior ranking officer to be hit. So it created a bit of a storm in the public. Everyone was running around Darwin going, he could have died, he could have died. Kirsty was the only one who said he survived. Now, we were almost on the cusp of divorce before I deployed to Iraq. We were emotionally caged beings cohabitating with when I deployed, a 10-month-old daughter who I didn't really know, hadn't bonded with as a father, didn't really know how to do that, was scared shitless about fatherhood. It was really good in the military, so ran to that. And yet she, in that moment, knew that our whole relationship would be rewritten. And it was. Although it was a bit of a rocky road with post-traumatic stress, depression, and almost taking my own life. But, you know, I got through it. And now it's like, in the last 10 years, I was reflecting on this the other day because I got out 10 years ago. The last 10 years, I've completely rebuilt my life. I live in an amazing place in the Northern Rivers, New South Wales. I have two amazing young ladies in my life who both just come of age, and they sit and will talk to me about shame, will talk to me about what's going on with them. You know, we're just having a hilarious conversation at dinner. And they know that I'll ask them the straight question, and I'll ask them the direct question, and I'll sit there and I want to know. And they laugh about it now and they enjoy it. And Abby, you know, mucks around with me. Abby's my oldest, and she woke up the instant I was hit, 12,000 kilometers away. Woke up screaming, you know, in a cot. And Penny, Penelope Jane, the gift from God was, or the universal greater spirit or whatever's out there. She was born 12 months to the day that I got hit. So my connection to them, I gave them every reason when I had PTSD not to love me, not to be in my life. But the big thing is, and this is what I often say, I owned my shit to the point where I didn't just own the negative stuff. I did that all right up front, but now I'm really comfortable owning my positive shit, my life. And that probably took me longer to own my negative shit, which is a little bit funny. You still got me?
Yeah, I think we just lost your audio, but carry on.
I was just saying that my last point I was making was it took me a lot longer to own my light than it did my darkness. Owning my darkness came easier. And interestingly enough, now I've gone through an own inner journey where the warrior is stepping aside a lot. The king is firmly center, but the magician has really come forward to dance and to play into mastery for that level at the moment. So, yeah, and owning all the darkness, which, you know, is not just trauma, it's the dark part of the psyche.
I think the audio's just gone again, man. We'll see how we go, but keep trying.
Gotcha.
Yeah. You were talking about what resonated with me the most right there was this idea that, you know, it was easier to own the dark than it was to own the light. And that resonates with me. And I just wonder how many men listening or how many men out there feel the same way, actually. It seems to be quite common.
Mate, especially, you know, you mentioned 2020, and there's so much cleansing of this earth at the moment going on. Funnily enough, cleansing the East Coast with the masculine fire element, you can't miss that. But then the feminine water element, we've talked about this, you know, you and I, coming in over the top. But the thing is, something needed to happen. It's like, you know, the feminist revolution back in the 60s needed to happen, but it was done in masculine energy. It was done in the fight. There's a shift in the feminine movement, which is, it's far more powerful now. It's so much deeper and richer. And there's these powerful women that are goddesses. And remember, like, a goddess is someone that we've feared. Like, men know when a woman, like a real goddess woman, enters the room, and we don't even have to look. You know, we'll feel the presence, something about her. And she will often not be the most attractive woman in the room either, as far as, you know, aesthetics goes, because she has this presence, this mesmerizing energy. And the funny thing about it is that a lot of men have feared that if they haven't been grounded and balanced within themselves. But there's this real fire, this real depth of power to the goddess. So, you know, the moment I think the Hieros Gamos, the divine feminine movement is really it's romanticizing the goddess at the moment more than anything. And cool, go ahead, love it, get into it, understand it. But at the same time, understand that, you know, when one of these women enters their goddess, you stand to a fucking tension when they enter the room, because you'll feel it, you know, and they will feel your presence too. If you stand at attention and move back, they know that, they feel that straight away. That's been one of my big journeys. I have a goddess in my life, and every time, you know, it's a bit like a superhero duel. You know, every time the superhero steps up, the villain steps up in power, you know, commensurate. And it's the same with Kirsten and I. You know, sure, we're married under were married under a church. My father was an Anglican priest, and I got married in the church that he was in. But we don't consider ourselves husband and wife anymore. Those archetypes don't suit who we are in our relationship. They're too limiting. Like, she'll take out the garbage or jump on a ride-on mower, and I'll do cooking. Or, for crying out loud, I even sewed my bloody pants up the other day trying to remember how to sew. So, you know, we don't, and it's a flippant thing. There's far more to it, obviously. But at the moment, what I really feel for me in 2020 and beyond is there's this beautiful dance happening. I really feel there's a shift of so many men, like a within the warrior within, and you know, yourself leading them, and you've got so many other beautiful, strong men, nurturing men as well, that are strong but at the same time supple and nurturing. That's just such a beautiful thing to have. Whereas before it was this falsity behind the stoicism, you know, and you know as well as anyone, the original stoicism and what we currently define as stoicism are they're poles apart. I really recommend don't go for a dictionary, always go to the etymology of a word. And you know, we misunderstand stoicism and stoics in their truest sense. You know, for a warrior point, when I speak warrior, I say a warrior can never act in emotion because they're unbalanced. And in combat, you know, take it from me, you don't want to be unbalanced in combat. It doesn't end well, you know. So, but the thing is, a warrior has to be balanced at any moment in time, and therefore we're acting from the emotion, we're acting from the messages it's sending us, and interplay within our environment. So when we read it, but to the Stoics believed in transcendence of emotion, and to transcend anything, you must move through it. You must intimately know it. To go to a point of what we would refer to in our work as emotional intimacy. So the first step being emotional literacy, understanding the emotion, but then what it's saying to me. But then emotional intimacy is having that ability to move through and transcend it. And really, you know, I know you've been massively influenced by the East in your understandings, and have gifted me so many of your tidbits and advice from that space, and that space, or you know, the middle way, for instance, that space of balance. Or I suppose the middle way, balance is a very crude term to use in that form, but I suppose you understand what I'm trying to say.
I do, man. I mean, there's so much in what you just said there, like all the way back to, you know, the presence of a goddess in the room. It's just absolutely true. You know, a lot of men that I talk to, they feel they're ready to, you know, to call in the wild woman, to call in the goddess. And I'm like, you know, you're going to find out, you know, if that happens and you manifest that, you're going to find out a hell of a lot about yourself, brother, because, you know, it's going to look a lot different to what maybe you think it looks like in your head. You know what I mean?
So, and good, and that's awesome that they're ready for that. Like that means like they're stepping up and they're wanting to step on the edge of the cliff, because by fuck, when you're in the presence of goddess, that's where you live.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's you know, it has to happen for the next stage of growth. I mean, you know, in a relationship like that, that's where the hardest work is going to happen, but that's where the most growth is going to happen.
Hell yeah. Absolutely. And I've learned, you know, I've been in the leadership game for, holy cow, over 25 years now. I know I don't look it, but but I said the other, I heard a video, someone rebroadcasted a video down on Facebook a few years ago, and I heard my statement. I hadn't heard it for some time, but it's so true. I've learned more about leadership from looking at Kirsty, her interplay with me, her interplay with just everything around me, from our kids right through, than I have anywhere else. You know, and people go, well, you're in the military for 17 years. You know, you must have learned a lot about military there. I went to Australian Command and Staff College. Like, I turned down promotion to Lieutenant Colonel. I learned more off my wife than, you know, anyone else, just by allowing myself to be in the presence of a goddess. And taking on that challenge of stepping up and fucking up, because I've fucked up a lot. I gave every reason to leave. and there's divine intervention there, obviously, and we got some serious assistance, and but the scales go back to owning my light. I've been there for Kirsty in her dark times as well. It hasn't always been me who's been the explosion within the relationship, and we're moving past that now. And I was talking to you before, we're moving into a place of letting go of the fight. For me, I got back in 2012, I started this program called Awakening the Warrior Within, and it started when I was me in 2012, and I was still finding myself in this space of helping people. I was, about 2 years out of the military. I've been working with a personal development company as their front man for 2 years. And then I stepped out on my own. I was just formulating this. And I was so connected to finding this warrior within and helping the true warrior wake up. Because I realized I ran to war a hero. I needed to be blooded. Funnily enough, in the military, they'll talk about a new capability that comes into the military, and they'll use it colloquially. This capability has to be blooded, and it's an old militarist term. And so, I charged off trying to be the hero, and came back with my sword dangling between my legs really, really quickly. I did not become a warrior on the battlefield. I didn't go into the inner world there. I put too much body armor on and 14.1 ton armored vehicle around me to do that inner work. But and I was commanding over 100 soldiers, so it was the weight of responsibility was huge on my shoulders, which was causing a lot of the breakage. But I became a warrior when I ploughed so hard in, I almost took my own life. And then I woke up, and I remembered my father's amazing gift to me. I was a young adolescent. I struggled to receive a lot of his lessons. I loved him, best mates when he passed in 2003, but still struggled because I was trying too hard to prove myself. And he said way back when I was very, very young, he just looked out in the bush and he says, "There's my God." Because he was a farmer as well. And I grew up on a farm. And he said, "There's my God." And I didn't understand him. I wasn't spiritually mature enough to understand what he was saying, but it didn't matter. I shut up. And he then looked at me and looked me in the eyes and he said, "But brother, you got to go and find your own." And that conversation I remembered on my darkest day. And it was like, that's when the king entered the room. And the warrior then was remembered, because it's the king who lays the sword on the warrior's shoulders. So I had to find my king before I could find my warrior. And that was, mind you, it's not that pretty. You know what this stuff's like. This emotional work is fucking messy. Anyone who thinks it's really nice and easy, well, good on you. You found something I haven't, which, you could be right. But what I've found is that emotional work and the inner work is fucking messy. And that's also the thrill of it too, It's also the thrill of it. So yeah, I found my king, I found my warrior, but Kirsty helped me so much in that journey. And at times, again, it wasn't pretty. In 2010, she said, "Grow a set." It's not the nicest thing for a bloke to hear, but in that moment, it's what I needed to hear. So,
man, there's as always, there's just a lot of gold in what you're saying, and I'm resonating with lots of it. Interestingly enough, we were in the circle last night. We were going pretty deep on the father stuff, and what you said there around, your dad looking out across the farm and saying, "There's my God, you've got to find your own," is really pertinent in terms of what we were discussing last night, because we were saying that a lot of the disappointment around sons and their fathers right now is that they expect them to be everything: father, king, both physical and mythological, and God, because all these things have been lost to us in society. Like, there's no mythological king, there's no political king, and God is kind of a messy concept. So you expect dad to be all of those things. So for him to stand there and say, "There's my God, you've got to find your own," he's saying, I'm your father. I'm not more than that. So I'm just a human being, and you got to go and find your own way. And I think that's huge, because when you say these things to a son, that suddenly, for me, when I started learning about this stuff for the first time, I was like, wow, my dad had his issues, but at the same time, I expected him to do so much more than he was capable of as a human being.
Man, if I wanted to do the cattle work on my own as a 16-year-old in the cattle yards, give me 2 minutes, I'd press every single button I needed to, and I'd eject my father in a fit of rage. He was dealing with post-traumatic stress from being in Vietnam. He saw stuff in Vietnam that, was not nice, was not pretty. And he did, for him, he turned deeper into his faith. Because back then, like, he actually sought help. So I found out later. He sought help. But no one knew what the condition was. And in the end, it was a straight shooter because, he grew up on the land. And if someone was, like a psychologist was going to talk shit to him, which he believed most of them did, then he just wouldn't listen, and he'd go and find his own path. And he forged his own path, and his faith was so deep, which was a bit of a dichotomy because he never wanted to ascend in the church hierarchy because he believed that's a complete crock of shit. And, his job was the flock, and that's what he was. The whole story of Friar Tuck amuses the crap out of me, and I look at my father quite a lot with that. But, for me, when I go around my campfire, and I don't do it on my own quite regularly, I give you the big tip, I get scared shitless. And I go straight out there, and one of the first things I ever do when I put my feet on the land is, and I do this in the car all the time when I'm driving, I do a little prayer. And I just ask the spirits of everything that I connect to allow me to safe passage, or if I'm working with men, I do a little creed that I ask them to hold space for us and to guide me, and but to guide us and to help us take this energy to where it can do its best good. And I have this dialogue with them, and like the bubble that is set up around there is just amazing. And the last few times I've noticed all the birds go for the first, because we go into the descent for 2 days. If you remember that, lots of guys will know the hero's journey. So we go into the descent for about 2 days, and the birds disappear. By day 3, we do some serious shit. And by day 4, like, blokes are getting swooped by, kind swoops, loving touches, instead of like magpie beating the shit out of you or a plover. Butterflies, and just everything comes out. The land so feels it. And I had some experiences the other day doing a rite of passage with some young ones. And again, there's something that's been romanticized. Like, a real rite of passage is full on for a person. They should be in isolation in the bush on their own for a substantial period of time. And anyway, I didn't understand why I was getting this message that the spirits of the land felt honored, because I was going, my human mind was going, I should be feeling honored about just being allowed to be here. And it became very apparent that, lots of people run to the land or to the bush to escape, to take drugs, to just go out there and shoot or whatever. And they escape. And the honoring was, we're healing the land, and it's got to be done in concert. So, the land has to heal and we have to heal, and the two are done in concert. And that was a really big message for me, actually, to step up and realize that, my king is so pivotal. And I used to have a principle of connection, but if you have a principle of connection, the obvious word demonstrates the antithesis, which means I believe, therefore I can be disconnected, which is actually illogical. It can't exist. And so therefore, when I realized that, connection disappeared, and in came through the doorway in this meditation was the principle of I am. And, one of the oldest mantras around is I am that I am. But for me, that demonstrated that it was only the cognition that ever thought that I was separated. It was only the cognition that thought that I was disconnected. And that was, as people will say, that's the illusion. But I felt it so pivotally. And every time I live in the bush pretty much. You've been here. And, my campsite's just up the back, only, up the top of the hill in this amazing spot. But every time I place my feet on that land, it's just there's this new vibe that happens within me. It's like lights up, for what it's worth.
No, man, I get it, you know, and you talked about the Eastern philosophy as well, and that, you know, the words you just spoke there quite easily come through that conduit as well. This idea of Maya, this idea of illusion, you know, it's the first thing that we got to break through, I guess. And you kind of did it, going from connection, which that totally resonates with me. The idea that if you're saying I'm connected, well then, you know, there's always the dark side of that, which is that you can be disconnected, which, you know, isn't true. You're always connected. And it's amazing that it takes us this long, you know, half our lives, maybe more, before we figure this shit out. It's just, it always surprises me when I come up with these types of things. I'm like, how did I reach 51 years of age before I figured this out? But that's just, that's the way it goes. And there'll be other things, you know, all the way up until I breathe my last breath. It's just the process, right?
It's funny because, you know, and there'll be quite a few blokes will be feeling disconnected, feeling hollow, feeling isolated. And if that's your way, that, by the way, that is your truth. In the moment, it is your truth. Lean into it. Lean into the motherfucker. Go as deep and as hard as you possibly can into feeling disconnected. Don't shy away from it. Like, don't run from it. The weirdest thing about battles is if you try and pull away, you're ambushed straight away. There's a thing that I was taught in the military, you know, in the Australian military, predominantly because of an ethos that we have in the Australian military, and there's always step on the front foot, always fight for information, you're always trying to be proactive, you know, and that can trip your person up if they go out of balance. But the point being, if you feel disconnected, isolated, or whatever, then own the fucker and just step right into it, because it's the weirdest thing that happens is, and this, you know, personified by my own experience, is that I felt like I was going down, down, down into this never-ending pit, and it wasn't ending. And all of a sudden, I started to feel like I wasn't going down anymore. And I cannot put a single thing on one technique I did, one breakthrough I had, whatever, one day, the moment. It wasn't like that. It was like this gradual sensation. Then all of a sudden I'm going up, and then all of a sudden I take the first breath of the rest of my life. And I've never had a relapse of post-traumatic stress or depression. I don't go into suicidal ideation anymore. I haven't for years. And I never took medication. And I'm not going to get into an argument about pros and cons of a biomedical approach. It's not the point of this conversation, nor is it realistically useful. But the point is that one of the reasons why I haven't, the predominant reason, is I went there, you know, and I was ready to fucking fight. Is that's what I needed. I needed to go into that. And you can just feel the passion in my voice. I'm just amused at watching myself speaking at the moment. I can just feel that passion, because that's the journey. And it's actually, funnily enough, it's actually a beautiful journey when you sit back and, well, for me, what I found is I can actually look at some just amazing, like, shit moments. But like I said before, I laugh at the roadside bomb, you know. I look at shit moments now and I smile. Have a completely reframed picture of them.
I love that. I've taken more recently to calling that whole process the art of the descent.
Yeah, right. Yeah, nice.
Because it's an art, you know, and it is ugly and it is messy and it is painful and all those things, but it's also very, very necessary, you know. And if you listen to James Hillman and some of these other psychologists and mythologists that I follow, and they say, it's possible to be in the descent but still be in the world.
Yep.
And to me, that's where the art part of it comes in.
Yeah. Yeah. And like, you put out, have you put out those 4 videos to the group, the Hillman, Blind, Mead?
Oh yeah, there's plenty of stuff. We were actually listening to some of their lectures last night in the circle. Actually, yeah, from part of those videos, and yeah, there's so much beauty and depth in there, isn't there? I mean, they put what we're talking about just into beautiful, into a beautiful expression, you know.
Yeah, and like the storytelling is coming back. I really feel that, you know, we lost the art of storytelling, but it's been held by many people. And you know that if the guys on the call haven't actually listened to those audios, I strongly recommend them. They're really beautiful, and don't just listen to them once, because there's just too much gold in there, you know.
Yeah, that's right. You know, and I like what Michael Mead says at the beginning. He says, you know, don't fret over, oh, what did he just say? Because he said the man next to you will have written it down. You know, there's this beautiful sort of collective energy that happens when those stories are told. And I was just, even that bit when you just said that everything went quiet, you know, when you took those men out into the woods, I was just thinking, well, that's the Firebird myth, you know, this idea that when pay attention to the world, pay attention to nature, because when everything goes quiet, when the birds stop singing, something profound is about to fucking happen, man. So pay attention, you know.
Strap in. Oh, it's so true, mate. It's so true. Yeah. So that's awesome.
Yeah. Well, I had a couple of sort of just to turn a corner and maybe change direction just slightly, but just to ask another broad one. I was just going to ask you about, in this year, 2020, where we're at now, man, like, you know, what does it mean to be a man in 2020 in the, you know, the gospel according to James?
Well, and that's the thing. Yeah, it's such a broad question. I would not be so rude as to attempt to make a generic statement, but for me, I really, there's so much opportunity for us right now. Like, we've been wanting for so long. Men have vacated a lot, you know. In the last 10 years of helping men come back from a almost permanent vacation has demonstrated that to me. 2020 and beyond there's so much richness to it. There's so much balance to it if we choose. There's you know, people don't need to be vulnerable anymore. Just be open, because vulnerability says that I'm going to be hurt, and in your subconscious mind you'll attempt to protect yourself. Don't be vulnerable. Be open. Be open to new experiences. Open to new emotions. I actually think at the moment we're not in the age of the shadow warrior anymore. We're actually in the age of the shadow magician. And so, yeah, get into the work, get into the circles that you guys hold down there, and they're so beautiful. You know, having experienced a couple, and you know, I speak to the group, not Asher right now. This man is fucking amazing. What he knows when he decides to engage his second brain in a conversation, you know, hold the fuck on. But his breadth of understanding is just huge. So milk it. And he's learning personal boundaries so that he can say no, but you know, and hold his own space. But because he's got the heart like fucking Farlap. So, you know, get into this understanding not only of the warrior but of the magician, because there's, at the moment, well, just look at it, you know, gospel etymology, that is God's spell. And there is a lot of spells that we are currently under. And the warrior is required to break the spell, to take the action to break the spell. But at the same time, do that being educated by the magician on how the best way to do it, but do it by decree of the king. And never draw your sword without king's decree, because you will literally fuck yourself. And I speak the words of my own past when I say that. You will fuck yourself if you draw a 25mm Bushmaster chain gun and you fucking use it for things that are not authentic and not real. Don't think I got post-traumatic stress by being hit by a roadside bomb. I got post-traumatic stress because I joined a false king. And that's cool, because I needed to find my own. So the year of 2020 and manhood and what it looks like for me is doing the steps of, you know, doing that discipline. Actually, discipline, I think, is overrated, because discipline is a natural function. It's a byproduct. When you unite with your heart and you align with everything in life, you will naturally prioritize things that align with what you want. And so discipline's a byproduct in its truest sense of self-discipline, as opposed to being imposed discipline. And I used to learn, I knew that pose discipline shit quite a lot, and fell right on my ass when I got out of the military, because I didn't know how to self-direct and self-authorize. So, you know, discipline will look after itself when you unite with doing the right things for yourself. Now, initially, if you're in a shitty place, you might need discipline, and you might bullshit, you'll need it. And therefore, as a group, having mates around you to help you with that will be really, really beneficial, if not almost mandatory. And then when you start really getting your stride and you start realizing you come from hope through to hope, we've talked a lot about this, but hope through to faith, which is both an internal and external thing. And then you go from faith and you start making this progression into knowing. I know this motherfucker's the path that I'm meant to be on. It's like my freedom. I gift my freedom back to the universe, because I know this is my path. My choice is a divine choice now. And it's said that, you know, the closer we become to the divine, the less we have of freedom. Yet it's a man's want to spread our wings, to have freedom. We must go through that cycle. But anyway, an aside. So, you know, staying within that and understanding that balance for me now is pivotal in everything I do, because I know my sword is so fucking powerful, and I'm conscious of the responsibility that comes with owning my own power and using my own power. So, you know, doing the things that make my heart sing, especially, you know, Kirsty's away for now, so I'm taking the girls around to everything that they're doing, and we like school, you know, they're with me pretty much 24/7. And I'm honoured that they've chosen that. That's what they wanted. So I must still, because I've still got other things I want to do, I must ensure that I maintain all the balance and everything that I need to do. So I know this doesn't really answer your question. Well, it might. But at the same time, you know, for me, it's the king. The king stands front and center, and it's owning my magician nowadays, and utilizing my warrior by king's decree. And sometimes my warrior is told, sit the fuck down, champ. You do not fucking draw your sword right now. You don't do anything, wherever that goes.
Oh man, well, I think I think you answered the question perfectly. In fact, I don't want to add too much to it, because I'm taking away from it only in the sense that I totally resonate that we've moved into this era of the shadow magician. I mean, you've only got to look at the word right now, the expression of the word. It's like, you know, fake news down to everything else.
Yeah,
everything really does fall under that shadow magician. But I'm not going to touch that too much, because I think you've summed it up perfectly. And for me, the only message that I would give to the guys listening is this idea of understanding how and when to use your sword, and putting it in the sense of the king's decree is absolutely perfect. I mean, you've heard me talk about, you know, what Robert Bly says about the use of the sword. He said you should reach a point as a man where you can just turn your sword in its sheath ever so slightly, so that the ray of the sun catches your aggressors in the eye, and that's all that's needed. You know, just a tiny little tweak without even actually removing it from the sheath, because you're so much in your power that's all you need to do.
It's like a glance.
What's that?
It's like a glance, you know.
Yeah.
If people are stepping into their warrior speak, and this is, you know, some of the basic work that they're doing, really start to understand what your armory is. Like we talk metaphorically about this sword, but, you know, your sword's your language, it's your tone. Remember, communication is 7% words, so it's everything in that, and it's there's so much more. And when you literally and it's energetic, and it's everything, and when you unite with all that stuff, that's when we realize, holy shit, I have been afraid of actually picking this thing up, because it is so damn big and powerful. And I start to like realize, you know, I don't understand why you're a bloody scared shitless dude. So, you know, remember, Neo went into a training matrix, a training program, before Morpheus let him out into the matrix, and he needed to learn his skills. So use mates, use circles, use that to learn how to learn which weapon to get from the armory. But even more importantly, learn when to go to the armory and when not to.
100%, man. You know, and moving on from that, you know, your cock is also your sword too, and there's a whole nother discussion around, you know, how that gets used, and you know, you understanding that your cock is medicine, and that your usage of that and the way your relationship with your own penis is a whole nother thing which really isn't brought up too much in this men's work, and just we need to go there, you know.
Totally, absolutely. It's just point of creation. You know, I muck around with the girls because they're now at that stage. They know I've got a very high libido, and don't shy away from the fact that I perv on their mother all the time. And you know, Kirsty knows it. I know it. The girls know it. You know, and I don't shy away from that. But at the same time, I'll walk around naked. You know, and I've got a thing about my house. I have to be in a place where everyone feels safe to do what they want to do, and walking around naked, I strongly recommend. That said, I don't probably need that much space to do that nowadays. But there's so much to what you just said, brother, and understanding the phallus and, you know, the point of creation and respect and reverence. You know, if you're a young man listening to this, and you're willing to take it from a guy who's been in a relationship for now over 20 years, and I could not explain to you 20 years ago what this relationship looks like right now. But understand, if you want to live that long in a relationship, 2 words: respect and reverence. That is their sacred site. When you enter the vagina, you are now in fucking sacred territory. You respect it and you pay homage. And you know, that's what they want from us. They want to feel that they can trust us. And have a look into this thing between protector and provider and all this stuff too. Have a look into that. This archetypal stuff needs to break down, to be reforged, like, and understand what the real essence of masculinity holding space is, opposed to trying to fucking protect her over stuff that realistically, man, she's got so fucking nailed. We don't even just get the fuck out of her way. Basically, look at orgasm. You know, when you take a beautiful union of 2 people, all she wants you to do is fucking hold a space, you know, hold on, and you know it when she's going through the roof and you're holding on like for dear life. you know you're hitting the mark, because she trusts you. She's got to trust you to let go, to go to those levels. And then, you know, if you're doing it right, and I'm still a novice in this path, you know, Ash and I have talked a lot, haven't we, mate, about sexuality and stuff. And, you know, I've realized that for so long I was having sex, I was fucking. Now I can't do that. I can't do that unless I'm, you know, making love with Kirsty. And this new union is beautiful space. So yeah, please look into that. Look into your own divine energy, and you know, the Tao works, but also have a stop. Don't just go to the East for a lot of this. Buddhism, I've found, you know, has been a gift to understand far more about Christianity. But you know, they say that Christ was about the heart, Buddha was about the mind, union of the two. But at the same time, you know, if your lineage, your bloodline takes you back to a place, have a look at the deep belief systems of where you come from. Understand, you know, that Gnosticism, like, phenomenal shit, like seriously phenomenal, powerful stuff. Hermeticism, you know, if you go back, there's so much deep stuff there. Have a look. Don't just diss your bloodline, because your soul incarnated in your bloodline for a reason. So, and you might need to separate from it a bit to heal it so that you can come back to it. I know that feeling. But at the same time, have a look at your genealogy and your belief systems of your blood, because they will guide you. They're there to guide you in their purest form. Don't become fixated. Rigidity in any form weakens resilience and destroys harmony. So. I just got on a rant. Sorry.
No, it's all good, brother. I'm just going to take 2 seconds and turn my battery on. So just hang on.
Come in a rant again. I'm good at ranting.
Yeah, but look, man, I think what I'd love to do at this point is basically just draw it to a close, because I'm sure you'd be happy to come back and kind of, you know, do this on a semi-regular basis.
Yeah. If you have questions too, you know, like if if they want to, I noticed there was no front loading of questions, but if people want us to discuss stuff, like the two of us have fun when we discuss shit, you'd be doing us a favor.
Agreed. Agreed. Well, I mean, we can do that next time, man, because I know, you know, as I said, you know, energetically, you're so connected to this circle, and you know, having you as a regular sort of touch point, I think would be awesome. So, I mean, other than here, like if people wanted to reach out to you, if people kind of listen to this and just feel that they really resonate with you, what's the best thing for them to do?
Well, if you're not already connected with me on Facebook, please do so. I like to put videos out there, and there's lots of stuff that talks about a lot of the things that we've done. We run a charity, national charity called Resilient Leaders Foundation. Ash has mentioned them on the blurb before. We do rites of passage right through to now. A lot of my focus is what's called a new way of leading called harmonic leadership. Is not a model of leadership, it's a paradigm of thought which brings everything from the quantum realm back into the spiritual realm and everything. That's a bit of a stupid statement, James. Quantum realm and spiritual realm, it's as if they're two different things. But for those that are still getting into this space, it's probably good to hear the two words. But it's, you know, this is a new way forward. We need to understand harmony is the cycle. You know, harmony requires death and growth. And leaders need to understand that and moving forward, and they need to realize before turning on the ampage of their power, they need to have had a series of things lined up. Otherwise, collateral damage occurs. So that's a lot of the space we're doing at the moment, and there's massive change. And people are eating this. I was just with an AFL club yesterday, and they're fucking eating this shit up, man. And young men you watch that code. I've got a lot of faith in that code really shifting. I know there's streaks ahead of the other two, which are really hurting at the moment from the work that I've done with them. But yeah, AFL is still behind, like as in where they can go. And I've got a feeling that listen to podcasts with Nathan Buckley and what Hartwick's doing. Was it Damien Hartwick? Am I right there?
Mm-hmm.
Should know because he was an Essendon player. And, you know, they look at what he's doing. And Asher, you know, talk to Asher about his work bringing Wim Hof and just consciousness into Essendon and the like. They probably needed that too. I know I was an Essendon supporter. So yeah, there's real shifts, and there's this awakening. So if you're ever despondent, if you're ever feeling that shit, you know, the tide's against us, I'm here to say, from one who reads tides nowadays far more than I don't, the tides are way in our favor now. It's really shifted. The energy has changed into 2020. The Indigenous, the ones that are still connected, is now so fucking powerful and lighting up. They're owning shit to a whole new level. That's why lots of people don't actually understand what Ayers Rock's closing is all about. But it's, you know, there's shit happening on this country that is actually creating a shift globally. So if you're worried, please don't. And if you're worried about our young generation, stop listening to the fucking media, because you will get worried. Our young generation are inspiring. I work with them all the time, and they've got this shit. All we need to do, go back to what I said before about women, hold space and fucking help them equip themselves with their understanding they're king first, with respect and reverence, and moving forward.
Mate, I think that's a beautiful place to end it, James. So I appreciate your time, brother, and let's do this again soon.
Love it, my brother. Thank you so much, guys, for the opportunity to speak too, hey? And keep doing what you're doing. Love to everyone. You guys are magic. And got to understand the butterfly effect. You owning your shit fucking creates massive change. So my hat off to you, and I salute you.
Nice work, man. Thanks again.